I want to thank everyone for coming out today to the Iowa State Fair. I want to thank the Des Moines Register for giving me this opportunity to speak here today with all of you. 2 years ago, I ran for this congressional district seat, and I ran as an independent, but I've always been a liberty-minded person, and I've joined the Libertarian Party of Iowa, and the party has seen fit to give me their nomination to run for this congressional district. So I attended high school at Council Bluffs St. Albert High School. I was a college basketball player, but I wasn't able to play because of a back injury. I spent my first 2 years at Iowa Western Community College, so I'm a product of Iowa's wonderful community college system. I earned my Bachelor's of Science degree in psychology from Bellevue University in Bellevue, Nebraska, and I earned my law degree from Creighton University in Omaha, Nebraska. So the country has a lot of problems these days, and it seems like the two major parties, they don't want to resolve any of these problems. They want to just continue them, and they use these parties as wedge issues to get us arguing amongst ourselves. They've got the rich arrayed against the poor. They've got the young against the old. And they've got the different races that are creating conflict between us. So 2 years ago, when I decided to run for Congress, the first thing you do when you run for Congress is you want to find out why there's only 435 people to represent a country of 320 million people. And the reason is there was a congressional amendment that was never ratified when the country was founded. And it was called the Congressional Apportionment Amendment. And this amendment would have limited our congressional districts to 50,000 people. Now, this district here runs from Des Moines to the Missouri River to the Missouri border. There's 760,000 people in this district, and that's way too much responsibility to put on one person's shoulders. Now, if this amendment was ratified by 27 more states, our congressional district would be broken up into 15 little districts. And that would get every citizen a chance to participate in the democratic process. It would give everyone a chance to run for Congress and be an advocate for whatever issues are important to them. So if you see, right now, our Congressman Young and any other congressman has $1 million budget. Now, in my opinion, that's not very representative government. That's a corporation. Each congressman is allowed 18 paid staffers. And just a month ago, I went to a town hall sponsored by Congressman Young. And I went there because it was a town hall for senior citizens. My grandmother turns 90 in a few weeks, and both of my parents are on Social Security. So I went there to get information for them. But I also went there as a citizen and as a candidate for this congressional district. Now, David Young's chief of staff greets me at the door and proceeds to read me the Riot Act. He tells me that I am not allowed to get signatures to run for Congress, that I am not allowed to engage in free speech, that I am not allowed to hand out any flyers. Now, that day, I put my law degree to use. I'm not an attorney, but I argued with David's chief of staff for 10 minutes before finally I had him shaking his head and gritting his teeth, and he said to me, "I guess you're just going to do whatever you're going to do." And I said, "You're damn right, because this is still America, and we have the right to run for office." Now, last week, I was told by Iowa Public Television that since I am a member of a party not recognized by state law, and that I did not accept $50,000 to run for Congress, that I'm not allowed to participate in the televised debates. I can't think of anything that's more un-American than censorship and prior restraint. I'm as equal to David Young and Jim Maurer. And my friend Claudia Addy here is also running for Congress. And so is Joe Grandinette. So the debate on Iowa Public Television, unless we can somehow convince a judge to allow us to participate in the debate, we're going to have our own debates. And maybe that's the way it should be for us little people. We have to do things ourselves. But you know what? I don't think you should have to sue the state television network to participate in a debate if you've qualified for the ballot. The state of Iowa, the Secretaries of State's office, has qualified us to appear on the ballot. And David Young and Jim Maurer are no better than the three of us. So, and I don't know how you can have a public debate where 3/5 of the candidates are excluded. In my opinion, that's just wrong. Now, my friend David Young, he campaigned 2 years ago. And he told us all that we are his boss. Well, you know what? I don't want to be David's boss, but I do want to be equal to him in the eyes of the law and in the eyes of the television networks. Because there's a third of the people in this district are neither represented by the two major parties. There's a third of us that are independents and third parties. And our voice and our viewpoints are just as valid as these legacy political parties from the first Civil War. And the two-party tyranny, they really don't like anybody else speaking out and addressing the issues that they refuse to resolve. But I've learned a lot in the last 2.5 years. So if I was ever elected to Congress, here is how I would represent you. I would take that $1 million and I would do something that the two major party candidates are not going to do. I would offer them a job. That $1 million, I would give $200,000 to David Young. I would give $200,000 of that staff money to Jim Maurer. I'd give $200,000 to Claudia and $200,000 to Joe Grandinette. And then there'd be another $200,000 for me to represent you. And what we need to do is to decentralize the federal government. It's just grown beyond all means. It's grown beyond all constitutional limitations. There's people in Washington, you know, they call it a law when they put a bunch of black ink on a white piece of paper. But I believe that we're all free and we all have the right to withdraw consent. So I withdrew consent several years ago. I've lived below the poverty line because I refuse to pay for death, debt, destruction, debasement of our currency, and debauchery in our society. I want to see more of us in 2 years. I'm glad that Claudia's running. I'm glad that Joe Grandinette's running. I'd love to see 20 or 30 of us have a chance to run for this congressional district, just to send a message to the two-party tyranny that we've had enough. You know, I'm 6'7", and I've had it up to here with the way that they mismanage our country, they mismanage the economy, and I think the only way they're going to paper over the fact that this economy is dying is by starting World War III. Now they're talking about making women register for the draft. You know what? There's never going to be another draft in this country because there's enough men from my generation, Generation X, who did not have the opportunity to serve this country. So you're not getting the children of America. They're not going to go fight for the banksters and the corporations halfway around the globe, killing people that have never taken half of my paycheck, people that have never spied on me or threatened my liberty of speech. My grandfather, who served honorably in World War II, he was a lifelong Democrat, as is my grandmother and my parents. And I still carry around my Democratic voter registration card from when I was 18 years old. And I consider that a broken promise from all the failed policies of the Democratic Party. But the Republican Party has had failed policies also. We cannot continue the welfare warfare state any longer. It does not work for any of us. If you go around and you look at how little money that you make from your jobs, and there's so many of us that have to have 3 to 5 jobs just to make ends meet. And it totally destroys our way of life. It destroys our family life. And it just creates more and more division. But that's been the goal of the two-party tyranny since they were instituted over 150 years ago. They use a strategy called divide and conquer. Well, what I'm trying to do here is I want to bring everyone together. If you decide to vote for me on November 8th, and I am elected, I promise, I swear, that I will not take a paycheck to represent you. I don't need the money. I don't have any money, and I do not want any And it's not even money, it's currency. Money is a store of value. The pieces of paper in our wallets are fiat currency. And our government just continues to print, and they don't have to print anymore. All they have to do is hit a keyboard with a couple of zeros, and voila, there's $1 trillion. So this country is awash in debt. Now, I want you to think about what you feel is important to you. However you vote, that's completely up to you. I'm not a politician. I'm a concerned citizen. And I wear this hat, this tri-corner hat. I've had people say, that's a nice pirate hat, Bryan. I say, no, it's not a pirate hat. It's a patriot hat. The real pirates are on the Potomac in Washington. And I have a plan to restore the Constitution and bring the power back to we the people, to take it away from the special interests and the parties. I'm going to wrap up here with a little poem. It's written by a poet from the late 1800s, early 1900s. His name is Walter Wintle, and he wrote this poem. It's called The Man Who Thinks He Can. And the poem goes like this. If you think you are beaten, you are. If you think you dare not, you don't. If you'd like to win, but you think you can't, it's almost a cinch you won't. If you think you'll lose, you're lost. For out in the world we find, success begins with a fellow's will. It's all in the state of mind. If you think you are outclassed, you are. You've got to think high to rise. You've got to be sure of yourself before you can ever win the prize. Life's battles don't always go to the stronger or faster man. But sooner or later, the man who wins is the man who thinks he can. I want to thank you for listening to my rant, and if you need any more information about me or my campaign, my name is Bryan Jack Holder. My website is Holder for Iowa. That's HOLDERFOR Iowa.com. Thank you.